Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Shabbat. We are up to Perek Hey Mishnah Daled. Today's Mishnah should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Tzvetlana Aranbayev Neriyahu ben Burcha Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden. Amen. The Mishnah begins En Hamor Yotze Bamardad Bizman She'enah Kishura Lo. A donkey may not go outside on Shabbat wearing a saddlecloth if it was not tied to the donkey before Shabbat. Velo bizog, nor with a bell suspended from its neck. Afal pishu pakuk, even if it is stuffed with cloth to keep it from ringing, which the Mefarshim explain. One may not let a donkey go outside with a bell hanging from its neck because he looks as if he's taking the donkey to the market to sell it there, which is prohibited on Shabbat. The Tefillat Yisrael gives the background to understand one who wanted to sell a donkey would attach a bell to it so that its sounds would attract customers. Now, even if the bell is stuffed with cloth and cannot ring, it is prohibited because there is an appearance of wrongdoing, what we call marit ayin. Now, if the bell can ring, the animal may not wear it on Shabbat at all, even in a reshut yachid, a private domain, due to the prohibition of making sound on Shabbat. Ashmat kol, as Rashi writes in Masechet Shabbat, page 53a. Velo v'sulam shebetzavaro, nor with a ladder-like brace on its neck to keep it from turning its head around and scratching itself, which the Rav explains. If an animal has an irritating wound on its foreleg or neck, the owner would fasten a brace of wood to its neck to prevent it from turning its head to scratch the wound. The brace is called a sulam ladder because it has a wooden frame that resembled a ladder. Now, although this brace is needed to protect the animal and therefore is not a burden, it is forbidden because it might fall off and be carried by a person 4 amot in a public domain in Reshut Harabim. The same reason applies to most of the items listed below, again as Rashi explains in his commentary Masechet Shabbat, page 54b. V'lo birtzua sheberaglo, nor with a protective strap on its leg, which the Rav explains if an animal's feet knock against each other, the owner would tie thick leather straps around the place of contact to prevent injury. V'en hatarnegolin yotzin bechutin v'lo birtzuot sheberaglehen. Chickens may not go outside wearing strings for identification or straps on their legs for restraint, which the Mefarshim explain. A chicken's legs were tied together with a short strap to prevent it from jumping and breaking utensils. Now, although this strap is not meant to protect the chicken, it is not deemed a burden because it is common for chickens to wear such straps at all times. But nevertheless, a chicken may not go out wearing one on Shabbat because it might fall off, and then a person will, God forbid, come to carry it 4 amot in Reshut Harabim. Then הזכרים יוצאים בעגלה שתחת העלייה שלהן. Rams may not go outside with a miniature wagon under their tail, which protects their tail, which the Mefarshim explained. The Rav says rams have long, wide tails, so in order to protect a ram's tail from being damaged by rocks and stones on the ground, one would attach a small wagon to the animal. The wagon would trail behind the ram under the tail, thereby preventing the tail from coming into contact with the ground. Again, this is not allowed. Then harechelim yotzot hanunot, use female sheep. They may not go outside with chips of yachanun, wood, in their nose, which makes them sneeze. And the Mefarshim explain, one would insert a chip of a type of wood known as yachnun into the nostril of a ewe to make it sneeze and thereby dislodge the worms in its head. Only female sheep ewes were treated in this manner. Rams, male sheep, they did not need this treatment because they butt each other and the butting would dislodge the worms. And again, like we said in the Mishnah, they may not go outside with chips of yachanun wood in their nose. A calf may not go outside with a yoke made of reeds, which is used to train it to bear a real yoke, which the Rav explains. A small, lightweight yoke was placed on a calf to get it used to bending its head and prepare it to wear a full-size yoke when it's older. That's not allowed. And a cow may not go outside with porcupine hide on its udder to protect them from rodents, or with a strap stretched between its horns. Now, the Rav explains a cow's udders would be covered with the hide of a porcupine, which is covered with needle-sharp quills to deter rodents from sucking its milk. That you cannot let the cow go outside like that, or with the strap stretched between its horns, which the Rav explains. The strap is forbidden whether it's being used for purpose of restraint or decoration. It's not permitted as a restraint because it exceeds what's required to control the animal, like we spoke about in Mishnah 1, and it's not permitted as a decoration because the decoration of an animal is classified as a burden unless the decoration is commonly worn, as the Rav writes in his commentary to Mishnah Masechet Betzat, chapter 2, Mishnah 8. The Mishnah concludes, פרתו של רבי אלעזר בן עזריה הייתה יוצאה ברצועה שבין קרניה שלא ברצון חכמים. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's cow would go out with a strap between its horns, but this was against the will of the sages. Now, the Mefarshim explained the strap was intended as a decoration, because in Rabbi Elazar's opinion, this decoration was not a burden because it was common for cows to wear them. Now, although the Mishnah calls it his cow, it did not belong to Rabbi Elazar, but to his neighbor. But since he did not stop his neighbor from letting it out on Shabbat adorned in this manner, the cow was considered as though it were his own. And again, like we said, Shelo b'tzon chachamim, it was against the will of the sages, because that's how we said in the line before, a cow may not go outside with a strap stretched between its horns. And that is in Rabotai of Perek Mishnah Daled. We begin now with Perek Vav Mishnah Aleph. Now, as an introduction, the prohibition of transferring on Shabbat applies only where one carries the object. For example, he holds it in his hand. It does not apply to the clothes or jewelry that a person is wearing because they are considered part of him and not separate objects that he is carrying. Nevertheless, the rabbis prohibited wearing certain items on Shabbat because one might remove them and carry them 4 amot in the public domain. The Mishnah now lists items that a woman may not wear outside on Shabbat for that reason. Bama isha yotza. What may a woman wear outside? Ubama inah yotza. And what may she not wear outside? Lo tetze isha lo bechutei tzemer velo bechutei pishtan velo birtzuot sheberosha. A woman may not go outside with strings of wool, strings of linen, or straps on her head, which the Mefarshim explain. Women braided these 3 items into their hair for decoration. Velo titbol ben ad sheterapem. And this is because she may not immerse herself in a mikveh while wearing these items until she loosens them. Terapem. If a woman has to immerse herself on Shabbat, she might remove these items from her hair completely instead of just loosening them and then carry them 4 amot in the public domain. So the rabbis therefore prohibited women to wear these items outside on Shabbat. Now the Mefarshim explain as a background, when immersing oneself in a mikveh to become tahor, the water must touch every part of one's body, including the hair. A tameh woman must therefore loosen these strings or straps that are tied to her hair before immersing herself so that they do not block the water from her hair. This law applies even on weekdays. The Mishnah states here to explain why women may not wear these items outside on Shabbat. Because a woman who needs to immerse herself on Shabbat might remove them for the sake of the immersion and then carry them in a Reshut HaRabim, a public domain. To prevent this, the rabbis made a general decree prohibiting all women from wearing these items outside on Shabbat, as the Taz explains in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman, chapter 303, Halacha 2. ולא בתותפת ולא בסנבוטין בזמן שאינן תפורין. A woman may not go outside with a headband or head bangles if they are not sewn to her hat, which the Rav explains. Headband, these were colorful ribbons or gold and silver decorations that hung from the headband down to her cheeks. And head bangles, since they're special to her, the Rav explains the headband was a headband. The head bangles were colorful ribbons or gold and silver decorations that hung from the headband down to her cheeks. Now, the reason for this prohibition is since they are special to her, she might take them off to show a friend and then carry them 4 amot in Reshut HaRabim. This is also why she may not wear the following items listed in the Mishnah that we're going to say. Now, the prohibition of wearing a headband and head bangles applies only when they are not attached to her hat. If they are attached to her hat, she would have to remove the hat and uncover her hair to show them to a friend. And since a woman would never uncover her hair in public, she's allowed to wear them. V'lo bekavul l'rshut harabim, she may not go into a public domain with a forehead pad, which the Rav explains was a decorative piece of cloth tied over a woman's forehead as padding for a headband. Sometimes it was worn by itself for decoration. Here now the Mishnah specifies Reshut HaRabim. This is because a woman is forbidden to wear a forehead pad only in a Reshut HaRabim, but she may wear it in a courtyard. Now by mentioning Reshut HaRabim only here, the Mishnah implies that all the other items are forbidden even in a courtyard, and according to some, even in a courtyard that has an eruv, as Rashi says on page 64b. Now the rabbis made an exception in the case of the forehead pad because they did not want to prohibit all adornments in the courtyard and cause a woman to appear unattractive to their husbands. But we see from here that all the other items were prohibited in the courtyard as well, from the fact that it says here that this is only prohibited in the Reshut HaRabim. V'lo be'ir shel zahav, v'lo v'katla, v'lo b'nizamim. She may not go outside with the city of gold, which is a tiara of gold designed to look like the city of Yerushalayim. She may not go out with a choker, which is a band worn tightly around the neck to make the face look plump, which was considered attractive in those days. She may not go out with nose rings. Earrings, however, the Rav explains, were not prohibited by the rabbis because they were not easily removed. V'lo b'tabat she'en aleh chotam, a ring on her finger that has no stamp for sealing letters, you're not allowed to go outside in public domain. And the Mefarshim explain, the Mishnah refers to a ring that is worn as jewelry. A woman is forbidden rabbinically to wear it on Shabbat because she might remove it to show a friend and carry it in a Reshut HaRabim. A signet ring, which is a ring with a stamp on it that's used as a stamp marks or seals on documents and letters. That'll be discussed later on in Mishnah 3. But the point of the Mishnah is that if it's a ring for jewelry, it's worn as jewelry, that's not allowed to go out in Reshut HaRabim with it. V'lo b'machat she'ena nekuva, or a needle that has no hole for threading. Now the Mishnah refers to a needle that is sharp on one end and has a decorative gold bar on the other end. A woman would stick the sharp end into her hat so that the gold bar would adorn her forehead, as the Gemara says on page 68. Even this kind of a needle, although it's jewelry, was also prohibited by the rabbis because a woman might remove it to show a friend and carry it. A sewing needle, which has a hole, however, is not considered jewelry, and so wearing it outside, even stuck into one's hat or other clothes, is biblically forbidden, like we will learn in Mishnah 3. The Mishnah concludes, V'im yatzat enna chayevet hatat, but if she went outside wearing any of these things on Shabbat, she is not liable to bring a hatat offering. And the Rav explains, because wearing these things outside is permitted by the Torah. They are only forbidden by rabbinic law. Now, in current times, the Mefarshim bring down, when items of jewelry are common, women are unlikely to take them off to show to others. So for this reason, the poskim discuss, they bring down authorities that do not forbid women nowadays to wear jewelry outside on Shabbat. Again, everyone must see the practical halacha in the Shulchan Aruch commentaries, Mishnah Berurah, Ben Ish Chai, Kaf HaChaim, Likud Yosef, etc. That is then, Rabotai, of today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have a Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.